Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. They always say the view from the top of the Burj Khalifa is unforgettable. And they're right. I just never imagined the memories would haunt me like this. It was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. My reward for surviving the worst year of my life. A solo trip to Dubai, a room booked on the 152nd floor, dinner at Atmosphere, sunrise views from the observation deck. I even joked on the flight over that I was heading into the clouds to escape the chaos down below. I should have known better than to tempt fate like that. It started normally enough. I arrived at the base of the tower in the late afternoon. The sunlight painted the glass in molten gold as I stepped through the towering doors, dragging my suitcase behind me. A smiling concierge greeted me, took my passport, and handed me a card key. "Enjoy your stay," he said with a practiced smile. I rode the elevator alone. It was one of those smooth, silent types that climbs without a sound. The kind that makes you forget you're rising through the air at incredible speed until you glance at the floor number and realize how far from the ground you really are. Floor 152. My ears popped slightly as I stepped out into a hallway that smelled like lavender and money. Everything was polished to a mirror shine. The floor, the walls, even the number plates on the doors. I found mine at the end of the corridor. Suite 152-19. The room was everything the website promised and more. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a dizzying view of the city. You could see the coastline curve like a blade, the desert stretching endlessly in the distance. I was floating above the world, weightless and invisible. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of noise, no. This high up, the air is still. You're too far removed to hear the hum of traffic or the chatter of nightlife. But something felt off. Like the silence wasn't peaceful, it was holding its breath. I chalked it up to jet lag, opened the window a crack to let in the dry breeze. It didn't help. The next morning, I noticed something strange. I went down to the mezzanine lounge to grab breakfast. It was empty. Not early morning quiet, I mean empty. Not a single person. Not the hostess, not the chef, not even other guests. The buffet trays were full, still steaming. It looked like someone had just stepped away. I called out, tentatively, "Hello?" My voice echoed off marble and glass. No answer. I glanced at my watch. It was 9:30 a.m. prime breakfast time. I stood there for a minute, unsure whether I was being pranked or had stumbled into some kind of hotel mystery dinner theater. That's when I noticed something on the floor. Near the entrance to the kitchen, a trail. Not of anything alarming, just spilled juice? No, darker. Like something had dripped in slow, uneven splashes from the kitchen doorway toward the main hall. I stepped closer. It wasn't juice. It had that strange, congealed sheen to it. Thick, slightly brown. Something inside me whispered, "Don't follow it." But I did. The trail led me through the hallway to a service elevator, the kind only staff were supposed to use. The doors were jammed open, and the interior lights flickered like a dying flashlight. Inside, I could see the metal walls were smeared with handprints. Some full, some partial. Some dragging downward like someone had tried to claw their way out. The smell hit me then, like iron and mildew, like rain on rusted metal. I backed away. That's when I heard it. A sound from far below. Not a voice, not a word. A groan. A long, low moan that carried up the elevator shaft. Something primal, something hungry. My blood turned cold. I slammed the elevator doors shut and bolted back to my room, locking every latch behind me. I pulled the curtains closed and pressed my back against the cool wall. I wanted to believe it was a dream, a weird hallucination. Maybe I was sick, overtired, dehydrated. Then the power went out. The whole suite shuddered into darkness, plunging me into a silence so deep I could hear my own pulse. And from somewhere far below, rising through the steel bones of the Burj Khalifa, I heard it again. That same groan, closer this time. I didn't move for what felt like an hour, just stood there in the dark, staring at the door. The suite was suddenly a cave, a silent tomb suspended more than 100 floors in the sky. The city below, once alive with movement and lights, now looked like a dead circuit board. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. But where would I go? The elevators were out, the stairs. No way I was walking down over 150 floors, especially not with that thing echoing up from below. I grabbed my phone, no signal. Wi-Fi was gone too. I opened the curtain slightly, hoping to catch someone on a balcony across from me or even on another tower. But the skyline, usually brimming with neon, was flickering in patches. Entire buildings were going dark, like candles being snuffed out one by one. Then I saw it. In the building across from mine, on the 40th or maybe 50th floor, something smashed against the window. I jumped back, heart racing. It was a person. No, not just a person. There was something wrong with them. Their movements were twitchy, their arms jerking like a puppet fighting at strings. Their face kept slamming into the glass again and again, leaving behind smears of something too dark to be anything good. And then, through the silence, I heard it. A muffled shriek. Not from across the way, from within the tower, somewhere below. Followed by a thudding, repetitive sound. Feet. Running. Dozens of them. I pulled back from the window and grabbed whatever I could find. My phone, my wallet, a small flashlight, a pocket knife I'd brought for travel emergencies. I packed them in my backpack, hands trembling. My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear my own thoughts. I had to make a decision. Stay or move. That's when the hotel intercom crackled to life. It screeched with feedback before a voice broke through, male, deep, and desperate. All remaining guests, please stay in your rooms. Do not attempt to leave. Floors below 80 are compromised. I repeat, do not open your doors for anyone. Then static. I held my breath, hoping for more instructions, for reassurance, for anything. Nothing came. Just silence. Until the scratching started. At first, it was faint, a soft scraping like nails on the other side of the door. Then, something hit it. Hard. I jumped, nearly dropping the flashlight. It wasn't loud enough to be a battering ram. It was subtle, testing. I tiptoed to the peephole and looked out. There was a woman standing in the hallway, alone. Her back was to the door, head tilted sideways like she was listening for something. Her arms hung limp at her sides. Her clothes were neat, like she had just come from a brunch or maybe a morning spa session. But there was something wrong with her posture. Too still, too unnatural. I watched, frozen. She slowly turned her head, twisted it, toward my door, as if she had heard me breathe. Her eyes met the peephole. I staggered backward. Then she did something I still can't explain. She smiled, not with her mouth. Her lips didn't move. It was something in her eyes, like she knew I was there, like she was glad. She lifted one hand and scratched the door again, fingernails dragging across wood. Then she walked away, her steps uneven, limping, but not because she was hurt. Because she was changing. I waited 5 minutes, 10. I didn't hear anything else. Then the emergency lights flicked on. Dim red bulbs lined the hallway like warning beacons. I crept toward the door again and listened. Silence. I opened it just a crack, holding the pocket knife tight in my hand. The hallway was empty, but on the wall across from my door, someone, or something, had scrawled a message in what looked like black ink, though I knew better than to assume it was just ink. It read, "Don't go down." I should have listened, but I had to find answers. I had to know what was happening, and more importantly, I had to survive it. The red emergency lights gave the hallway a strange underwater feel. Shadows stretched long and slow against the walls. I stepped out carefully, every nerve in my body screaming to turn around and shut the door again. But I couldn't stay locked in a room forever. Not this high up. Eventually, food would run out. Water. Sanity. I made my way toward the emergency stairwell. The door creaked when I opened it, and I winced, praying the sound didn't travel. The stairwell beyond was lit by dim backup power. Cold, concrete steps spiraled down and up, endless in both directions. The air was cooler here, and it smelled like metal and old dust. I didn't want to go down, not after what the wall said, but going up? There weren't many floors above me, just the VIP levels and the upper observation decks. No real escape. Still, I turned and started climbing. After about 5 floors, I stopped to catch my breath. My legs burned. I wasn't unfit, but panic makes you burn through energy fast. I pressed my ear to the metal door at floor 157 and listened. Nothing. I pushed it open. The hallway was half-lit but quiet. No signs of movement. The door to one suite was wide open. I crept toward it, staying low. Inside, the suite looked ransacked. Furniture overturned, drawers pulled out, bed torn apart. But there was no blood. No signs of a struggle, just chaos. And on the wall, above the headboard, another message scrawled in dark strokes. "They can hear your breath." My own caught in my throat. I turned around and stopped. A figure was standing at the far end of the hallway, half hidden in shadow, facing me. Not moving, not blinking. I backed up slowly. Then it twitched. Just once. A sudden jerk of the neck like someone flipping a switch. I ran. I bolted back into the stairwell and slammed the door shut behind me, praying the magnetic lock still worked. I didn't wait to hear footsteps, I just ran. This time, downward 5 floors, 10, 15. My legs screamed, lungs on fire. I stopped at floor 140. Listened. No sound. I pushed the door open just an inch and peeked through. This level was darker. The lights flickered every few seconds. The hallway looked scorched, like something had burned along the ceiling. Black soot covered everything. The doors were all closed, except one. A man's body lay halfway out of it. Face down, one arm stretched toward the hallway, fingers curled. I stepped closer, my stomach tightening. He wasn't breathing. But the way his hand was reaching, it didn't look random. It looked like he'd been trying to write something. Sure enough, smeared across the floor in something dark and sticky were 4 words, barely legible. Don't trust the voice. I stared at it, confused when a voice did come. Loud and sudden from the intercom again. Same deep voice from earlier. Emergency evacuation in progress. All guests, please proceed to the nearest elevator. I froze. The elevator? The one that had been jammed open earlier, the one with the handprints and the flickering lights? Why would that be running? Why now? As if to confirm my doubt, a sound rose from below. The ding of the elevator. Then a squelching noise. Wet, heavy. Then something else sniffing, not human, not animal. Like something trying to detect me. I didn't wait. I shut the stairwell door and backed away, heart slamming against my ribs. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. Behind me, in the burned-out hallway, a shape had appeared. It had no face, just skin stretched tight over where a face should be, like it was growing but hadn't finished yet. It turned its head toward me and made a sound that didn't come from a throat. It came from somewhere deeper, wet and ancient and wrong. I ran again, back into the stairwell, slamming the door behind me. This time, I didn't stop running. I had no plan, no goal, just one thought. Higher. Up toward the top. Maybe there was a signal there, a way out, a helicopter pad, anything. I climbed, and as I climbed, I heard doors opening below. And feet, too many feet, they were coming. By the time I reached the top floors, my legs were jelly. I had climbed past level 160. I lost count somewhere around 163. The stairwell narrowed and changed texture. The walls here weren't the same sterile concrete. They were smoother, polished, almost untouched. These levels weren't meant for guests. I forced myself through a final set of doors that opened into a short, silent hallway. At the end of it was a wide, frosted glass door with gold letters etched across it. Observation Deck Staff Access. I pushed it open. And suddenly, I was standing in the clouds. The deck wrapped around the spire in a full circle, a ring of glass that gave me a 360-degree view of the world below. Dubai stretched out under a haze of early morning smog. I could see the sea, the desert, and the silent veins of highways twisting through the lifeless city. And it was lifeless. No movement, no cars, no people. Just stillness, as if time had stopped. I paced the deck, hoping, praying. For a sign, a blinking light on a helipad, a police chopper in the distance. Even just another human silhouette, nothing. Then I spotted something. Near the far corner of the deck there was a broken window. A jagged hole, like someone or something had been thrown through it. Shards of glass glittered on the floor, and next to it, a shoe. A woman's flat, bent at the heel. No foot in it, thank whatever was watching over me. There was also a trail, small droplets, leading to a maintenance door at the far end. I hesitated. Behind that door might be safety, or it might be the end. I opened it anyway. The room beyond was narrow and full of humming machines, servers, power nodes, control panels with flashing lights. It looked like a nerve center for the top of the tower. On the wall was a dusty terminal with a small screen, still flickering to life on backup power. I tapped a few keys. A map of the tower appeared. Different floors lit up in different colors. Red, yellow, blue, but most of them were gray, offline, dead zones. The red ones blinked. I tapped on one of the red zones. Floor 47 containment breach. I scrolled through the log files. Subject conversion time, 11 minutes. Transmission method, fluid contact. Initial outbreak confirmed. Basement level, unauthorized experiment. My fingers stopped. Experiment. This wasn't natural. This wasn't some freak virus from outside. It started here in the tower. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't caught in some random outbreak. I was inside the origin. Suddenly, the screen glitched, then changed. A new message appeared, typed out one character at a time. You're being watched. I backed away from the terminal. Then, a whirring sound filled the room. Gears turning. Metal grinding. A hatch in the floor slid open. I stared at it, heart pounding. Below it was a dark shaft, maybe part of the maintenance elevator system. A ladder stretched downward into the blackness. And from inside that shaft, I heard breathing. Not normal breathing. Ragged, wet, wrong. I slammed the hatch shut and bolted back out to the deck. That's when I saw movement. Not in the sky, not in the streets below. Inside the tower. Figures rising through the stairwell, pressed against the glass like shadows behind frosted windows. At least 6 of them. Maybe more. And they were fast. I sprinted to the emergency cabinet on the wall, smashed the glass, and pulled out the flare gun. Only one shot. No time to think. I aimed it straight up and pulled the trigger. The flare rocketed into the sky like a desperate scream, a trail of fire against the morning gray. I stood there, watching it rise. Then I heard glass break. One of them had gotten onto the deck. Then another, and another. They were circling me, smiling with eyes that had no light. And just as I was about to run, a sound filled the air. The heavy chopping of blades. A helicopter. I nearly collapsed from relief. It was real. Someone had seen the flare. But now I had to stay alive long enough to get to it. The flare arced high above the tower before fading into a trail of gray smoke. For a few seconds, everything went quiet again, except for the rapid thudding of my heart. Then I heard it dot the low thump of rotors. Faint, distant, but growing louder. A helicopter. A real one. I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't the last person alive. I sprinted toward the internal staircase leading to the tower's final rooftop platform, used only for maintenance, or, in rare cases, VIP evacuations. My legs were barely functioning, but adrenaline pulled me forward. Behind me, the first one stepped fully onto the observation deck. It didn't run. Not yet. It stood there, staring with that twisted stillness. Then it tilted its head, just like the woman from the hallway, and opened its mouth not to speak, but to let out a sound that made my blood turn to ice. A call. A signal. A shriek, muffled by distance, responded from within the tower. They were converging. I didn't wait. I bolted up the stairwell to the rooftop door, slammed the bar with my shoulder, and burst outside into the wind. The air hit me like a wall, hot and sharp, whipping my clothes around. The platform was small, just a flat expanse of concrete surrounded by short barriers. There was no railing, just sky and a straight drop into nothing. Then, over the edge, a black silhouette rose. The chopper. It was circling the tower, searching. I jumped and waved both arms, screaming as loud as I could, nearly losing my voice. A spotlight clicked on and blinded me for a second. Then the helicopter dipped, lowering toward the pad. Hope bloomed in my chest. I was going to make it. But hope has teeth. Behind me, I heard the rooftop door crash open. They had followed. 3 of them stumbled out, one on all 4s. Another with its neck bent completely sideways, like it had no bones left. The third was the woman from earlier, her smile wider now, lips split at the corners like paper torn too far. They didn't wait this time. They ran. The helicopter was almost there, 30 feet out and closing fast. A ladder dropped from the side. I sprinted toward it. One of them grabbed my backpack and yanked me backwards. I fell hard, the wind knocked from my chest. I rolled just in time to avoid a second one lunging for my throat. Some part of me acted on instinct. I reached into my pocket and pulled the travel-size knife, slashing wildly. It made contact. The thing recoiled, not in pain, but in confusion, like it didn't understand injury anymore. I scrambled to my feet and leapt toward the edge. The ladder was swaying, 10 feet away. I didn't have time to think. I jumped. The world slowed. I saw the skyline, the sun reflecting off distant towers, the streets below like veins in a dead thing. Then, my hands caught the lowest rung. My arms nearly tore from the sockets, but I held on. Above me, a soldier leaned out, yelling something I couldn't hear over the wind. I started to climb. Below, on the rooftop, the figures screamed, a sound that shouldn't exist in any human throat. One of them climbed the short barrier and jumped after me, but missed. I watched it fall, twisting in the air until it vanished into the city's mouth. 2 more tried. One hit the ladder, grabbed it. Its face came level with mine, pale, hollow, not even angry, just starving. Then a gunshot. The creature's head snapped back and it dropped away. The soldier hauled me up. As soon as I was inside, the chopper veered hard to the left, pulling away from the tower. The others began to shrink below us. But something strange happened then. The higher we rose, the more of the city I could see. And what I saw. The tower wasn't the only source of the outbreak. Other buildings, other streets, fires, movement. All of it spreading outward like ink in water. I turned to the soldier. His helmet was smudged, visor scratched, but I saw his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "How far has it gone?" I asked. He stared out the window for a long moment, then answered, "Everywhere." The chopper flew in silence for a long time. Below us, the world was changing. The streets of Dubai, once bright with motion and life, were now gray rivers of smoke. Fires burned in distant neighborhoods, and rooftops teemed with shapes too twisted to be human anymore. We passed over intersections where abandoned cars clogged every lane, their doors hanging open like broken jaws. It wasn't just the tower. It was everywhere. I sat in the corner of the chopper, shaking. Not from fear, at least not anymore. That had burned off back in the stairwell. What I felt now was worse. Finality. The soldier across from me finally pulled off his helmet. He looked like someone who'd seen this all before. Scar on his cheek, sunken eyes. He didn't introduce himself. Just looked me over and said, "You're lucky." I almost laughed. Lucky? I asked him where we were going. He didn't answer at first. Then, "We've got a stronghold, a temporary one, out in the desert." I asked him how temporary. He said nothing. That was answer enough. The rest of the ride blurred. I must have drifted off for a few minutes, or maybe just dissociated entirely. When I opened my eyes again, we were landing in a wide basin of sand surrounded by rock formations and modular metal walls. It looked hastily built. Scorched panels, makeshift towers, blinking generators that sounded like they were about to give out. Soldiers waited at the landing pad. One of them scanned me with a handheld device. I held up my hands, exhausted. "I didn't get bitten," I said. "Let's hope," he replied. They escorted me through a checkpoint and into a structure that looked like a converted shipping container. Inside, the air was cool, too cool, refrigerated, sterile. There were others in there. Not many, survivors. Wide-eyed, dirty, a woman clutching a little girl with both arms like she was trying to glue her to her chest. A man sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, whispering something to himself over and over. One of the soldiers handed me a foil packet and a bottle of water. "Rest," he said. "We'll brief you soon." But I never got that briefing. Because that night, while I lay on a thin cot under buzzing lights, the voice came back. Through the speakers mounted in the corners of the room. The same voice from the tower intercom. "All personnel remain calm. Protocol breach in Zone 3. Lockdown in effect." I sat up. The others looked around, confused, some scared. One of the soldiers stood, hand going to his holster. Then came the siren. One long, rising note. It sounded exactly like the one from the Burj. I rushed to the door, yanked it open, and saw the red lights spinning outside. Figures moving at the edge of the perimeter. Too fast. Another scream rang out from beyond the walls, cut short. This wasn't an outpost. It was a delay, a pit stop before the inevitable. Before I could move, another soldier appeared, shouting, "Everyone inside, lock the doors." But I didn't listen. I ran. I ran past the tents, past the supply trucks, past the chain-link fences already sagging under pressure from outside. I ducked into a maintenance tunnel just before the lights cut out and the sound of gunfire ripped through the camp. I crawled until I couldn't hear the screams anymore, until the wind swallowed them whole. I don't know how long I stayed underground. Eventually, I found a maintenance hatch and climbed out into the open desert, under a sky so full of stars it looked like it might collapse under its own weight. And now I walk. By day, I stay hidden. By night, I look for signs of life. Sometimes, I hear the helicopters, but they never land anymore. Sometimes, I see the towers in the distance, burning, falling, or worse, still lit, still broadcasting lies through speakers no one is left to hear. I think back to the Burj Khalifa, the impossible height, the cold glass and red lights, the smile of something wearing a human shape, and the words written in blood across the hallway. Don't go down. They were right. There's nowhere safe below anymore. The only way left is up. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.